gone live. So we'll do all of that again. Hi,
I
everyone.
see it.
So Dan and I have been having the most amazing chat because I forgot to press the go live button, and that's what Tim dived into the room about 30 seconds ago to say to me was, James, you do realise that actually you are not live at all, but we are live now. And hi everyone, my name is James and I'm joined here by Dan, who we'll introduce in a second. And I'm super excited that we are going through and back into the seasons of our career talks, because for me these are one of the best moments of the week, of the month, or whenever we get to do these, because I get to talk to awesome people like Dan about their career, and they are inspiring and they're awesome, and I am building you up and no pressure now. So hi Dan, how you doing?
Hello for the third time today, possibly. I'll intro myself quickly without delving too deep into the actual talk. So today, who I am is Dan, as I've been introduced as. I'm 1/3 of the team at Roadmap.sh. So I'm the developer advocate. Which essentially, if you know what that role means, it's not quite that here because the team is so small. So imagine developer advocacy, but then bolt-on marketing and product at the same time, which is all the experience that I have, as we'll cover.
That's one of the things I absolutely love about working in the startup, and I think that's one of the things that, or a small scale team, you guys definitely aren't a startup, right? But is you get to experience lots of different opportunities. And I don't know if that's going to come up in the talk today, so I hope I'm not taking away any thunder from that. The chat is going absolutely mad already, which is great. Generally about your beard, but we have moved on. We're live now, which is what counts. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Lots of people in chat, so we definitely will have some Q&A time in a moment. But as I said earlier, Dan, like today is about talking and sharing your experience and your roadmap into tech. So without further ado, like, hey Dan, how did you get into tech?
Well, I'm going to quickly close the stream so I'm not completely distracted. So it's a question that for some people is a easy question, but for me, we'll skip the first 12 years of my career, because the easy answer here is, how did I get into tech? Oh, I did normal school. I did secondary school in the UK. If there's anyone here who's not from the UK, you don't get anything out of it really. You get GCSEs, which give you, or at least you did 15, 16 years ago, which give you access into further education. I didn't pursue further education. I did the lazy thing and just joined the army. So is that
what we're classing as a lazy thing now? Because I mean, from my experience, like going into the army would have been definitely not the lazy thing. In fact, I think going to university was the lazy thing.
Yeah, it was tough, and I made it my own. It made me into the person I am today, is the classic line, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm pretty sure it did. Would I do it again? I don't know. Why did I join? I don't know. But it happened. And initially, I was going to join the artillery, which were, cloud punching things, dropping bombs, etc. Right?
Yeah.
I was persuaded while at basic training. So I did basic training at Harrogate in a thing called the Army Foundation College, which was like a college essentially.
Yeah.
It gave you more. They gave you more education in the hopes that you would become a leader wherever you go. That was the aim. Before I got there, initially it was called like Junior Leaders College and stuff, and they still maintain some of that. So while I was there, I got convinced that maybe I could do more intellectually than what I was planning on doing.
Right. Okay.
Which is no hate on where I was going to go. They just thought, well, maybe they were probably secretly saying, well, maybe you're a bit too weak to do that. Maybe you should just use your brain and go somewhere else. So that's what I did. And then I did a 11 and a half year career in the Royal Signals, where I started to get into tech, but super late, real late. Like I didn't care about any of it. I had no, apart from gaming and stuff, I had no interest in learning anything to do with
Is
tech.
don't you think it's really weird? And I still struggle with this. I think, and I just wanted to interject before we go on. It's like I think now at school you leave at 18, right? But going back in the day when we left, it was like at 16. It's like you've got this choice now, and it's like at 16, I was very bad at making choices. I was very bad at making decisions. I think at 18 I was pretty bad. I'm still not sure that I'm any good at making decisions either. But you're kind of forced at that point in your life, aren't you, to go out there and say, actually, hey, this is what I'm going to do with my life. These are the decisions I'm going to make, and you make a decision in that moment, right? And it's like, I just think that's really a lot to be put on someone, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the careers office when I was 15 and 10 months, which is the earliest you can do it. So
Right.
during GCSEs, I'd already passed selection.
Oh, really?
So, so I already knew that I was going in the army during
Okay, fine.
GCSEs. So yeah, I didn't put as much effort into it, which, they're only GCSEs, so it didn't matter in the long scheme. But at the time, it could have mattered. So I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, so I did a whole career, right? Big long career, and I didn't have any interest in anything until I met one specific person while I was in Iraq in Kuwait and Iraq. I met him in Kuwait in 2017.
Okay.
He was a young officer, and I mean, I'll say his name. He was Tom Eaton, and he's probably the whole reason why I have a career is because of him.
Wow.
He was, I guess, he was somewhat like me, where he was in the army, but he didn't really care about any of the green stuff at all. He didn't care about putting camouflage cream on or going in a field and none of that. He didn't care about any of that. He started showing me things, like just how to write a basic bash script or something,
Right.
to speed up a task, because we had a bunch of like server racks. They're all Microsoft servers, um, and I just wanted to, like, I don't know. I was just pointing and clicking around, and I wanted to clear some space or whatever. And he showed me a few things. I then, while I was out there, luckily I had access to this American university, because
Right.
American soldiers, they do the right thing. So to progress in their military career, they have to get civilian qualifications.
Right. Okay.
So they were doing like CISSP and stuff, and loads of like civilian certifications to become like a military equivalent of that.
Okay. So.
Um, so I managed to go there, and somehow they let us do it, and I got my Security Plus certification while I was there,
Right.
and that's what really started to trigger things, because I was studying for that while I was there, did it.
And just out of interest, Dan, like if you go back to your school days and study, and then compare it to obviously your study at this time, like how was that? Was there a different emphasis for you? Was there a different worldview of how you looked at study?
Yeah, I mean, school. I'm 33 now. School was a while ago. I I know that I didn't really care,
Yeah.
and I don't know where I'd be if I did.
Yeah.
I've got to hope that I'm doing good now, and it wouldn't have really mattered or something. Maybe I could have
Uh,
fast tracked my career by doing good in education, not joining the army and stuff. But you never know, do you? So you can't really tell.
No, and I think the thing I'm getting to is because I was the same as you, right? Like when I was at 16 studying, I was like, well, why am I doing this for? But then when I studied later in life, I don't know what it was. It was me, right? Study didn't change, but as I grew up, study was vastly different. And I think we see it when we have people come to the course, right? And it's like actually when I was studying when I was younger, education studying just didn't click with me, and probably because I was so young and didn't really understand it. Whereas when I went back and studied later in life, I just got it and it clicked. And maybe because I found that passion. You're talking here about you essentially found that passion by writing those bash scripts, right? I was like, you found a passion. And I just wondered, did learning become fun at that point, or was it still arduous?
It was, yeah. Learning for me never really got fun. I don't think it has been, personally. I just the difference between school and when I was, because bearing in mind at this point as well, I was contemplating leaving the army.
Yeah.
like I knew that I wanted to at some point, but I didn't know how or what I was going to do or anything. Because it takes 12 months to leave the army, so it's like a big decision. Like you have to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But the difference when I started studying for that Security Plus certification, which was my first like civilian certification, I had a reason to do it.
Yeah.
And like I would do it and I would pass it, and then I'd have a piece of paper in my hand instantly. So it was like real like fast feedback loop of validation. And also, so I'll fast forward even further now. So that was 2017. I I think it was April 2018. I did sign off from the army. So I did all the things on the computer. I pressed the button, bang, 12 months has now started. I then spent. I decided what I wanted to do was something to do with DevOps because of the whole bash. I was good with physical servers.
Yeah.
I was good with network communication, and I had this Security Plus certification randomly.
Yeah.
Because everyone at some point in their careers had an interest in something to do with cyber because it's like you think it's cool, right? So that I had this weird combination. So I was like, well, DevOps sounds cool. So I started to try and find resources to learn it. Code Academy, which has been bought like twice since then. I think now it's belongs to someone else. They were huge for me. They were huge. I learned a lot with them. I remember sitting in coffee shops pretending to be I was trying to pretend to be a civilian. I was trying to get the mindset. So I was like in a coffee shop, learning away. And but here's the important thing that is a huge learning point for me, and something that I preach to everyone, like anyone that asks, how should I learn something? This is exactly what I tell them. So I went to interview for a job. So 6 months into my 12 months, I started interviewing for jobs. And two things happened when I interviewed for this first job. One, take seriously, the other, don't take too seriously. So the first thing that happened is I went to interview for a junior DevOps engineer role at a internet service provider in the Southwest. They were super, super young, really, really young. The engineering department was like 4 people. That was it. That included customer support. There was no one there. And I rocked up in a 3-piece suit. Obviously, no one else there was wearing even remotely close to that. Especially not the people that were in the room that was for engineering. They were all obviously in t-shirts and jeans. So I turned up in a 3-piece suit because I thought that was a thing to do.
Right.
And here's the kicker: I started doing the interview, and I don't know a single thing. I don't know anything. I know nothing, because I hadn't validated any of my learning at all.
Yeah.
I'd done these courses, and they might have given me a success screen saying, "Yeah, you finished this module."
Yeah.
But I hadn't put any of that learning into practice. Really, I may have done. I can't really remember. But if I did, I definitely didn't do enough of it.
You got the interview, right? I mean, which is incredible.
I got the interview, and I don't remember what I did entirely to get it. I think I'm pretty sure. In fact, I know what this one was. I worked with a really good recruiter. Who
They
was
are
young.
out there.
They are out there.
They do exist. They are rare.
I know some very good ones. This one was one of them, and he thought this sounded good for me, so he got me an interview. I remember like going to his office in Bristol the day of it. He sat me down. We had a cup of coffee, which hasn't happened since, by the way.
He didn't tell you to wear the 3-piece, did he?
No, but I sat down with him, went there. Anyway, I do the interview. I completely bomb it. Now, I must have done something right because they still offered me a job.
Wow.
But they didn't offer me the junior DevOps job. What they offered me was a lower paying, just customer support job. That was it. Just first line customer support. So instead of now in my mind, doing cool things at this internet service provider, I'm now manning the phone and fresh desk, getting berated by customers all day, every day. However, sometimes like that as well is a fantastic entry into tech.
Yeah.
Like I've done podcasts before with people, like DevOps engineers and stuff, and in the comments you'd be surprised how many people that said they got their entry into like DevOps or SRE via a customer support role.
I just want to like touch on that because I think that is super important for this course. That is a technical-ish role. You know, you are ultimately going to be gaining knowledge, speaking to people. Because like someone's got a problem, you need to probably speak to the technical team to find out the answer to that problem. But also, your foot's in the door. So the next time they're hiring, it's like all of that stuff in between, you know, starting a job and going through the norming part of being in an organisation is done. So you're like the next person on the list, right? I mean, did you enjoy that role?
No. Not at all. No, not at all. I don't know if you wanted me to say yes.
No, I
but,
didn't. I wanted
like,
you to be honest, but it's like I love the fact that it's like no, it's just completely flat.
No,
So, did you enjoy it?
It
No.
wasn't. I just, you know, despite now doing a lot of speaking and talking and stuff,
Yeah.
that's fine because I'm speaking to people that hopefully want to hear me talk.
Yeah.
When I'm on the other end of these customer calls, it's just, put it this way, no one's going to phone an ISP to tell you you're doing a good job, right? So they were all negative. However, I learned a significant amount about Wi-Fi technology.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to learn, it wasn't my intention, but I learned a lot about it. And here's the important thing about that job. So, just to recap on this role, I went in and yeah, I wore a three-piece suit, but I presented myself well. I showed a lot of enthusiasm, to the point where they wanted me, but they didn't want me for that job. So they put me somewhere else. Customer support is pretty like high turnover, I imagine, because yeah, I guess one for the stepping stone, two for the burnout, three people just can't take it sometimes. So what I started doing then was, it was a small company, I started just offering to help with other things. So, for instance, I knew they were lacking in a certain area, and the certain area was the manager of customer support was the person who was going out in a Land Rover and fitting all the servers into the racks and connecting all the fiber to them and stuff, right? He was the one procuring them, serialing into them, and setting them all up, doing all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I've done this stuff before. Like I've handled physical machines. So long story short, I ended up splitting my time. So I was 50% essentially a sysadmin, 50% customer support. And then eventually I dropped all the customer support. And now I was doing this weird sort of hybrid sysadmin, like IT, like generic IT role, essentially, really.
Yeah.
I was procuring all the tech equipment, I was setting it all up, I was assigning it to locations, and it actually ended up being a, like, for the short amount of time, it ended up being a really important job. Like I single-handedly put tens of villages online. I even went to the the Thatcher's cider headquarters and fitted in their internet
Oh wow.
for them, which
What
was
was it
cool.
like?
What, the internet or the Thatcher's cider place?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the cider place.
It was really cool, but it didn't let me take a trophy. I
Uh,
wanted like a unique bottle to have on my desk as like a memory of, like, you know,
yeah.
I did that. But yeah, then I left this company and I pursued what in my mind was actual DevOps.
Right.
And this here is like, in fact, I have a point I would have almost forgot to say here, which is again another super important point. So I got burnt a little bit at this job. Not burnt out, but I was burnt. I was promised something and ended up not getting it. And part of me was like, I I need to have values and I can't stay somewhere that's burnt me like this. So I was looking for other jobs, and I found a job, and I think what happened is I pulled out halfway through
Right.
the process because I had too much. I had like a bit of guilt, like a loyalty kind of guilt, like left
Yeah.
over from the army a little bit, where I was like, I need to stay here. I can't do this. So I abandoned it, and then a month later or something, I actually reached back out to them and essentially apologized and was like, "Look, I think I made a mistake. I want, like, can you give me another go?" And they did. And again, I turned up in a three-piece suit
Nice.
again to that. It
Hey,
was
it
a thing
sounds
at
like
the
the
time.
three-piece suit's working, man.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's the hidden takeaway from this.
Yeah.
Buy a three-piece suit.
We've all been laughing at
Uh,
the three-piece suit, but actually, that's the hidden thing.
yeah. So I ended up getting this role, which was a real like baptism by fire of like new skills. So
Right.
it was a perfect environment to just learn everything because they were not set up for like DevOps at all.
Right.
They were very much like they were using shared drives for code. They weren't using any sort of version control at all. They had nothing. Um, they had a server rack in a cupboard. It was all manually configured by one person, and that was it. So in my time there, I ended up just learning. Like I used it as an opportunity for me to learn like every industry tool and
Right.
implement it in some way. So like we had everything. We had Ansible, we had Docker. I self-hosted GitLab for them and had them actually using version control. And then it was like it was mirroring the repositories to a physical machine.
Nice.
We had everything. I gave them everything. It was really good.
And did they give you they gave you the space to learn and do that? Because I guess you were kind of going, "Hey, I'd like to do this thing," and they were like, "Well, how do you do it?" I don't know. Is that how it happened, or how did this all come about?
Long story, yes. Short story, I think short story, yes. Long story, I also learned how to like persuade people in business, I guess. Because it's not good enough to just turn around to them and say, Docker's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are doing this. Well, why should we do it though? Like all our stuff works perfectly fine, right? It works fine. So I found I had to find a way. I essentially found business cases but didn't write them. Is what happened. Like one example is they the speed it took. So all the development team at this place were all developing WordPress websites. That was all, and they were hosting it on a custom platform that they built themselves. All the code was stored in what essentially is Google Drive, but local. So they were all. It was a mess for a developer to switch context. It was a mess. That was one thing. Another thing is extreme heat in the summers brought down the whole server rack. So everything was gone. All the customer sites that were hosted, everything internally just gone completely. So I used that as an excuse to learn Ansible. Both of them things as an excuse to learn Ansible, which I ended up using to allow the users to leverage Ansible. Sorry, allow the developers to leverage Ansible to push and pull these projects from GitLab onto their machines and set them all up. There's a lot in the background. From their point of view, they just go, Dave wants this website, go. And I just did it for them. And I also created like a large playbook that when the main server came back online, you could just serial into it, run the playbook, and it triggered everything else, like all the mail servers, client sites, and everything. So that was fun, but and this is where like continuous development comes in, I guess. I'd kind of done everything at that I thought I could do there. I'd given them everything that
Yeah.
I thought I could give them. I'd learned everything I thought I could learn. You know, I still have friends that work there now, um, and they still love it. That place is an enigma. The leadership, like the leadership there is an enigma. That the guy who owns that company is fantastic.
Yeah.
David Gilroy. David Gilroy is his name. I will name drop him. David Gilroy David Gilroy of Conscious Solutions in Bristol must have the best leadership I've ever experienced because nobody leaves that company. They go there and they just
Wow.
enjoy it, which is rare, especially for developers. Super, super rare. So they're doing everything right. But I feel like from my time in the army where progression was not in your control, I had now this like hunger to just progress myself manually. Like I knew I could progress myself. So I ended up going to the civil service, actually.
Interesting. So I'm just laughing at chat. Apparently, everyone is now moving on from the beard to the three-piece. There's a lot of chat about is everyone in chat a bot, and everyone is now beeping, which is quite funny. But I think the real takeaway is at the moment, is the three-piece. I think apparently the magical three-piece has become a thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't own one. I don't own one anymore, actually. So
Oh no.
no. Maybe I
Sorry.
should.
You went into the civil service, which is quite an interesting thing from a commercial environment. The beeping is still happening. From a commercial environment into civil service. Why?
So for me, what had happened so far is I'd left the army. I'd got my foot in the door. I'd learned some skills. Some weren't necessary, like Wi-Fi technology. Still cool, but not necessary. I'd then taken them skills and done what I initially set out to do, which was be a professional DevOps engineer, right? But that was all small. It was in a server cupboard.
Yeah.
That was it. Super small. So now I wanted to do it at scale. Like because it's a big difference between like this is good for learners, I guess. Like there's a big difference between home labs and then actually doing things at scale with a lot of people involved, and a lot of like distributed systems, right? That are all interconnected. So I wanted to try that, I guess. And that was actually his learning point number Z at this point. I don't know. But this is where I really started to understand network, like interpersonal networking. Like this is the job. So I did an interview, and again, I don't. I from talking back, because I'm still friends with the person. Both people that were there, I'm still friends with them. One's still there. One moved on. We'll talk about him later because he comes back multiple times. They told me that I wasn't technically there, but again, I presented myself, and here was the kicker. So I did no AWS up to this point. I did some Code Academy stuff because it was generic. At my first place, it was all physical machines. I was putting servers into racks. At the second place, it was private cloud. It was Open Nebula, it was called. I don't know if it still exists. It was a private cloud that we self-hosted. It's not really a cloud at all at this point, is it? It's on a machine in the cupboard 2 meters away. Now they're asking me questions about AWS, and I didn't have the working knowledge at all. So from interview 1, they confirmed I had interview 2. Interview 2 is in 2 weeks. And I thought it'd be a super cool idea to, as soon as I get off that call, I'm going to book a AWS solutions architect exam for the day before my next interview. So I just given myself, like I booked it, it's done now, paid. I then every morning at 5 a.m. I'd get up and I would spend like 2 hours studying for this certification.
Yeah.
And it paid off. I got it. I got the certification. I was very tired. I did my next interview and I was just like, look what I have. I did this. And that won them over, I think.
100%. It's like that's showing that desire, right?
Yeah. So I had to find a way to prove that I could learn fast and validate the learning. And once I got there, it was just incredible. Like, doesn't sound it, I was a DevOps engineer for UK research and innovation, which is a really cool place to work. They're doing amazing things.
Yeah.
I was not researching and innovating though. I was providing the platforms for people to apply to research and innovate for the country. So completely different things. But I met my mentor, who is still a good friend of mine. I have a bottle of gin from him on my shelf somewhere back here. He was this just unicorn of DevOps engineering. He had contracted the whole way through his career. He was a contractor at that point, and he really taught me how to actually do things, like not just on Code Academy or whatever. Like, he taught me all about Terraform, all about Kubernetes, like, and how to actually use these things in a real environment at scale on systems that matter and cost money if they go down, right? So I learned so much from there. It was amazing.
Do you think you were? Do you think you would have been ready to go? Because I think the thing that when you talk about scale, right, is it's risk as well. So you're doing stuff at a much bigger scale, and I guess like at that point you're inviting seeking in that risk. But do you think that taking that small step, because if we're talking about your developer career, now it's kind of like you went in not even as a developer, then you went into what was still a risk to that company, but really, like you say, comparatively low risk. Do you think going into that high risk would have been too much? Because these are little steps towards something that now is, like you say, like this really matters, right?
I would say so, especially considering in my first two jobs I caused outages. Like,
Right, like it was me.
yeah, I mean, like in the service provider job I was in initially, I mentioned how towards the end I was going and fitting everything in myself. When I'd go out to a village to fit racks in a server, I don't know if anyone in the chat knows how fiber networks work, but you have to get connected at both ends. So in the village, I'm putting in a server, I'm putting the little FSTPs, I think they call them. I put the fiber in it, we're all good. Then I have to go to the head end, which is a big ISO container in a field, packed like loads and loads of fibers everywhere. And I was always very meticulous about doing this, but over time, other people going in there and stuff, it ended up getting a bit messy. I'd done something wrong and then gone to my village an hour away. Turns out in that hour there, hour being there, hour back, and then back to the office, an entire village was just down. Like, I just caused the whole village to go down. So you learn from their mistakes. That wasn't a small mistake, but we learned, and it was a cascading issue of like this fiber cabinet is an absolute state. So everything got fixed. But yeah, back to the question: had I have somehow got that civil service job earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. I don't think. I'd sort of gone up in scale and responsibility, which
I
was
think
logical.
yeah, exactly that, and I think that's what I love about the story so far for me is we all have aspirations of getting to that point, right? And sometimes the entry point of how you get there isn't necessarily the one that you think. But already you can see that you're kicking through those. I mean, granted, getting up at 5 a.m. and studying for your certification is also something that got you there. But it is those moments you don't realise in life, right? That it's like, I'm going to take that because it's one step further towards it. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
Love,
you got to
love
have
that
like
approach.
I think that's an important thing now that's come off other conversations I've had is some people are too eager to get to a position that they feel is like the position. But there's a lot of positions that come before that.
Yeah.
And they're all very valuable things. And also remember back to what I said about the network thing. Like, the network thing is massive, 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 massive. So next step is where I thought I had really, really made it. And I had, and like most people, I sort of lean back on that to this day, is I decided to move on. Working in the civil service was really good, but my mentor had left. So I was now alone with my manager, who was also really good, but he was incredibly busy. As you can imagine, civil service is full of people that are massively overburdened and underpaid. So, you know, he just didn't have the time to like entertain me, I guess, really. So I started looking for the next thing, and I was applying for a few things. One, funnily enough, was CrowdStrike. So maybe I could have caused the outage at some point. You know, who knows?
Look at what you could have done.
Yeah, look what I could have become. But then a external recruiter for Circle CI came to me. And at the point, like it's funny what we said before about taking steps, small steps, right? As soon as they came to me and said they were from Circle CI, I instantly was like, that is too big. Like, there's no way I am ready for that. I'm just not. Like, it's a big name. And if you're in DevOps, I don't know if it's relevant now, but at least back then, 4 years ago, Circle CI was huge. It's a big platform, big name, was a big leader. And I think I spoke to my partner at the time. I was like, shall I just interview for it? At least then I have the experience of interviewing for a big company, right? And I actually ended up doing really well on the interviews. And the interview process was actually a process that I took away after that to use myself in the future. It was really good, really interesting. Without going too deep into it, because it's a bit unnecessary, the interview process actually had us using Circle CI. We had a take-home project to use Circle CI to build an application and test the application. That was a big part of it. And that application you've built actually carried on when you got into the job as part of your onboarding. You would take that same application and you'd start using every single possible piece of the platform to bolt onto it and make it this big all singing, all dancing pipeline, sorry, which is really good. But yeah, when I got the offer for it, I genuinely thought that I'd like absolutely made it. I thought like this is the absolute pinnacle of my career. But it was a good job, and the team were really good, and I met a lot of good people, like Kyle Tryon. Was an incredible engineer, and but the role was a DevOps customer engineer. So it was basically you are an SME of the platform, and you're technical. You need to go into calls with customers alongside their like account executive and either help them with an issue, showcase a new issue, or what happened occasionally, which was actually pretty fun, was you would essentially vet their setup. So you'd completely tear to pieces their entire setup and tell them everywhere they're going wrong, everywhere they can optimize and improve. That was an awesome experience, and that was cut short. I was only there for 6 months, and this is where networking comes in, and it comes in again and again and again. So that mentor I talked about, the civil service, he comes out of nowhere, and he's like, Dan, there's this senior cloud engineer role at this defense tech startup in London. And he sent me a selfie of him with a life-sized R2D2, as in the that was in the office. So I was instantly like, okay, this is interesting. And I thought what was interesting about this was Nigel Gibbs, my mentor, he had sworn he'd never go back to permanent roles again. He was always going to be a contractor, but he was there as a permanent role. So something must have had to be up for him to switch permanent. So I did the interview and got it, and then I was there. It was
the R2 still there?
The R2. Well, a lot of controversy happened at that startup, which led to the R2 leaving at some point.
Oh,
but
no.
we won't go too deep into that. But this place was like another like tier again. Like bearing in mind, like I don't know. I guess the reason why I'm saying this is because it's the classic like mountain peak situation.
Yeah.
But in a good way, because I thought leaving the army and getting any job was going to be the peak, so I got it. Then I had another peak and another peak, and then I'd hit like Silicon Valley unicorn company, Circle CI, right? Peak of my career. Then this next one, in terms of like opportunity, package, like salary benefits, was just like insane. Like it was double what I was doing at the time. Like I'd never thought it would be impossible. And the work we were doing there was like a callback to like being in the army. Like now I was supporting projects that were saving lives. Like these are projects that were being like products that were being used in the Middle East in conflicts. Like not offensive products, they were like defensive, like products that were helping save lives. So it was really good. And that's again where all the skills like stepped up again.
Yeah.
Because that risk had gone up again, basically. And this is where I got to kind of do whatever I wanted in a way. So I was there as a senior cloud engineer, but that because the London team was so small, I then ended up becoming like the person whose name was put on documentation to be like the cybersecurity person. So I brought that experience back, put that into a new role. I was also like managing all the self-hosted instances of everything. Um, I was getting to work with my mentor again, and he was showing me all sorts of cool stuff. Like we had like AWS snowballs in the office, like the physical AWS machines that they send you. So I got loads of cool experience with that kind of stuff. Met some awesome people there, and my career also completely pivoted while I was there. So, and this again is like another good bit of advice because this is where I pivoted from engineer to engineering manager at this company. But it's very important to note that I made this transition within a company because some roles are probably borderline impossible to do if you transition to another company. Like if you think about it, going from an engineer to a manager in different companies, this new company don't know you.
Yeah.
They're not going to trust you. Yeah, they're not going to trust you with their people because you don't have any track record of managing people, right? So that's what I ended up doing. They ended up bringing this new like cyber project from the US to the UK, and they had an opening for an engineering manager. I thought, like, I loved managing people in the army, and I think it's super rewarding to help people.
Yeah.
Like, as I'm sure you can attest to. So I went for the interview, and then I did the whole AWS thing again. So now I was like meeting up with colleagues from Circle CI in London on my lunch break. One of them was now an engineering manager. I had a coffee with him. He was like giving me all the advice for like star techniques and all these kind of things. I read like, I think behind me I have like 5 books, Becoming a Manager, Sarah Drasner's book on engineering management for the rest of us, all these books. I've read them all, trying to become the best manager I possibly could. And I got the job. And yeah, then I had to start like building out a team, which was a crazy experience. Like now I was the one interviewing people to give them a job, which was crazy.
You didn't go for, in fact. Like I didn't go for that job, and you ended up customer service, and now, what's the time period here? 4 or 5 years?
Time period is shorter than I probably give credit for. So
Right, so it's a
I got the first job in October 2018.
Yeah.
And now it's August 2024. So
Yeah.
six years afterwards.
Getting that
But
first role, getting that first foot on the ladder is just so important, isn't it?
yeah, and here's the next like big one, which is a massive must for people. Like the network thing is cool. You know, I worked with a friend. We worked together for a year, and then he reached out and recommended me for a new job, right? Which I ended up getting, which is all well and good. Now, that's all cool because he was my friend and I was working with him. But building a network is not just about people you work with, right? So, in the process of building out this team, I was hiring a junior software engineer and I narrowed it down to two candidates. Both were identical, identical. Both had been laid off from the same company in the same role, had the same degree at the same time. They're the same people. If they're listening, they know they're not the same people. They're both incredibly talented. Now they're both incredibly talented engineers. And I had to pick one. You have to. There has to be a defining factor. Was there really a defining factor? Yeah, but it's redundant now. So I hired one of them. He was just a phenomenal engineer. And I'll tell you why, because if people listening that will become that phenomenal engineer, he was not a yes man. Like I certainly was at the start of my career. Bearing in mind, this guy was young. He'd only been out of university for a year. He'd been at a graduate software engineering job. At this point, I'd had a uh, 15-year career at this point, and he was just like telling me no and stuff. Like that's not the right way to do things. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. And that's what. And also his ability to just talk to other departments, like
Yeah.
stakeholder management, was just incredible, absolutely incredible. Anyway, we ended up working at this company for a while. He's on my team. The team is fantastic. I get a real group of people that are just phenomenal. And then we all get laid off. The whole of the UK is gone. Like standard, like to be expected, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So we're all gone. Now we're all floating in the abyss at this point. You know, I'm on a holiday with my family that was pre-booked when I was sat there, like super depressed, trying to find a job. My family's like going out on trips, and I'm staying in the apartment, like applying for jobs and interviewing all the time. I had a success. I met a fantastic recruiter at the time, who I still speak to now. And somebody messaged me that was completely unexpected. The engineer that I had essentially rejected for a job. So graduate engineer B, who didn't get
Right.
hired by me in the first place, he approached me and graduate engineer A, who are now unemployed, to join his new team.
Wow.
At his new defense tech startup. And he was only there, I think only, he was there as a software engineer in like a machine learning capacity. And he was the only UK engineer there. So they were starting to expand. They wanted to build a new team. They had a Middle Eastern team. Things were getting a bit too much for the CTO to manage, being a CTO and manage engineering people, like managing people, sorry. So he'd put us both forward. He recommended us both with flying colors. And both of us only had one interview. Well, I had an interview with the CEO and CTO, and we both got the job together. So I was there. I was now managing engineer A again with me, which is a great experience. Like I don't recommend it for anyone, obviously, but it was a great experience. Like going through all this with an engineer as a manager, like and seeing, I guess seeing them like how they handle it as well was really good. But yeah, like networking, but it has to be honest networking. You can't network for the sake of networking. You know, you have to be a good person. You have to try and be a good person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it should come back on you eventually.
I'm positive of that as well. That's yeah. Well, I mean, you told us a couple of experiences of how that works.
Mm. Like the thing is, I think a lot of people will try to get a network to get the first job, and that's not really how it works. Like I I mentioned this in like an X space or something a month ago or so. Like I have some friends on Twitter and stuff, but I kind of told them the truth of like I wouldn't recommend you for a job because I don't know you. Like I don't know. I haven't worked with you. I don't know your ability. I don't know how you work with others. I don't know any of your engineering talents at all. So the network comes from working with people professionally, and then it will pay off in dividends. Like you'll get to a point in your career where, like, you realistically don't have to look too much because the next opportunity should come to you. Should it doesn't, but that door is that door definitely exists. It didn't before.
Yeah. I've just gone out to the group because I'm in the interest of time. It's like we've got 7 minutes left. This is what I knew would happen. We messaged each other earlier. I was like, you know what's going to happen? We're going to have a chat, and then it's going to. We said 30 minutes. We're now at 53. We knew this was going to happen. That's cool. So if anyone has any questions, please drop them in chat. So essentially, the things that I'm picking out that we've said here, just recap them and please. More robots, please. This is the greatest. Just going through. Point one was, taking that opportunity even though it wasn't the right one. Network effects has been one of the key ones here, and it's like networking in the right way. Being willing to learn. I think that's one of the big things I'm picking out here. Of like, I still can't get over that story of the AWS certification. Like that was awesome.
I guess an important thing about that is that was I guess I wanted to prove to myself as well. I wanted to prove that because you can think you're a fast learner, but when that learning requires external validation,
yeah,
you have to prove that you've learned it. That's a different story, right? So
right. Chat is starting to pick up already, and there's a couple of great questions that I do want to just pick out here. Is like, how did you manage that situation when you caused the damage to the village? Like, what did you say to the company at that point of like, why that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember it vividly. So I'd got back to the office. It was dark at this point. I think while I'd been gone, I'd noticed issues. Like you're only going to notice it if people complain, right? So there'd been a few people, and I was then outside of my manager, just talking about the day or whatever, and he then had a phone call from the director of like something, the whole network or something, and they started saying things. They were like, "Oh yeah, Village X is down. We don't know why." And it started to dawn on me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." Or I think at this point, no, I'll tell you exactly what it was. I knew I'd done it, and I'd rectified it. So I'd gone back and I'd fixed it, and I hadn't purposely covered anything up. But this village was down for a fair few hours, and I think what had happened is I was now involved in this triangle conversation of them trying to figure out what happened. And then I have a really bad habit of being too honest, where it might badly affect me. And I was just like, yeah, that was me. I did make a mistake. It's really as simple as that. Like I just outright owned up to it.
And how did they react?
Well, bearing in mind at this point it was fixed.
Yeah.
I had rectified the problem. They were fine. Could have just been lucky. They were nice people.
I always
Yeah,
think as well, like, I think just to draw that out is people make mistakes. You know, mistakes happen, and and ultimately there's a chain of command and a thing, you know, of that. So, you know, individuals don't make mistakes, teams make mistakes, and I think that's the point. I mean, in this instance, it definitely was you who did it there, so it was an individual.
it was me.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but you know the point. It's like, and I think that most good employers will recognise that, and like you say, rectify. Next one coming in. Other than wearing your magical three-piece suit, which apparently is magical now, what do you think is the best way to get your first role? And I think you might have something to say on this, Dan.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have 3 minutes. I have 3 minutes before I have a hard stop, but I will like hit all of these fast. So well, this can be broken. This can be broken into two ways. One, like where can you go to learn? Obviously, Roadmap.sh is a fantastic place to go and learn any skills that you might need. But I think the question here really is like how to actually get it. And I'll give you this experience. I'll give you this answer from the experience of getting a job and hiring people. The amount of people that have had interviews with me that just do not care. Like they'll come on the call and they're so nonchalant. Like I don't care if you're the best engineer in the world. I'm not hiring you. Like it's just not going to happen. So I think a good way to get your first job is you have to realize that you're going to have to apply to a lot, probably. Try and find a good recruiter. Like try and actually seek them out. Like there's some that are talking on LinkedIn and stuff. LinkedIn's a terrible place sometimes. There is some fantastic recruiters that can help you. My first job was through a fantastic recruiter. That time I got laid off, another fantastic recruiter got me 2 offers. I mean, I got the offer, but he got me in there to get the offer, right? So I think that's an important part of it. You have to be willing to apply, but then you have to reset yourself between every interview. There's going to be rejections. You're going to get told you're not good enough. You're going to get ghosted. You can't carry that into the next one. Because, like, for the person hiring, he's bubbly and he wants to hire people that are going to be good on their team. But if you come in down in the dumps, it's just the impression is important, the first impression. Other than, did you ever use Cisco in your network job? No, actually, I didn't. No, I didn't. I never got CCNA. I never studied for it. A lot of people did, and it helped their career a lot, but I never did.
Having a kick-ass beard is apparently one of the reasons you got the job as well.
I'll answer that. Hey, don't believe in all the snake oils. Like, don't believe in beard oil. Don't believe in beard wax. None of it matters. Just look after the skin underneath the beard. Comb it, trim it. And that's going to help you.
There we go. There's a few more in here. I know that you've got a hard stop now. Is it cool if I email you the remaining ones? And just from everyone in the community, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you've got a hard stop now, so I'm a bit like, I'm going to let you go. But Dan, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will keep talking. You know, we're talking about other stuff anyway. So thank you so much, and catch you soon.
Bye, everyone.